Hello and welcome everyone to Red Planet Live. I am your host, Ashton Zeth. I'm elated to be hosting the Mars Society's podcast and leading the conversation about human exploration of the universe and the future settlement of Mars. Now, as a longtime space enthusiast, I am passionate about STEM education and making humanity an interplanetary species. Thank you everybody for joining today and supporting Red Planet Live. Want to remind everybody, we're in August. Can you believe it? Almost halfway through August on top of it, which means that the annual International Mars Society Convention is coming up. It's scheduled for Thursday, October 9th through Saturday, October 11th at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. This year, we are celebrating the 28th year, and the theme is Mars, the Time Has Come. We will be focusing on Mars exploration, human settlement planning, and cutting edge space technology. So you can go to that link right there that you see on the screen so that you can register. We hope to see you there. Want to remind everybody as well that the Mars Society's capital campaign for MDRS is still running. So if you are interested in supporting MDRS, which is our analog facility in Utah, where crews can go to live out their simulation, their Mars dreams. It's a place where we have a combination of explorers, of researchers, of scientists, of students that go to do Mars research. So right now we're hosting that campaign, trying to raise money to make updates to the facility so that we can continue on doing the research and the experiments that happen at MDRS. So you can donate to the campaign right there at that link as well. And for every donation, there is an added special perk that comes with your donation. So check those out, click on that link, and you'll see all the prizes that are included with the donations. All right, so jumping into today's conversation, we have a return guest, Leonard David. Leonard is a space journalist, author, and freelance writer who has reported on space activities for over 50 years. His work has been published in a variety of media sources, including Space.com, the Financial Times, Foreign Policy, Astronomy, Space News, and his own blog called Inside Outer Space. Leonard has also written or co-authored numerous books over the years, including Moonrush, the New Space Race, published by National Geographic in May of 2019. Mr. David is also the author of Mars, Our Future on the Red Planet. He co-authored a title with Apollo 11's Buzz Aldrin called Mission to Mars, My Vision for Space Exploration. Excited to be chatting with Leonard again. Thank you for being here.
Hey, great to be here. It's great to be anywhere when you get this age. You just, it's fun.
Glad we get
I'm more, the older I get, I'm warning you ahead of time. I am more angry about things than normal. So okay. God help us. Let's march forward on this thing.
All right, let's jump into that a little bit. I'm going to kick off the episode like we do all episodes with our question of the day segment. It's just meant to be an icebreaker. There's no right or wrong answer. Just want to get your opinion. So for today, our question of the day is, if you could teleport to another time in history, when would it be and why? I'll give you a second.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, it's a question for you.
Oh, my God.
And those that are listening can also put in the chat.
You're putting that okay, let me make sure I know what. Okay, time in history, where would it be and why?
Yeah, if you could
teleport. I got to teleport to the past.
Okay.
Because I'm very curious about how we have gotten to this conundrum in our space program that has been going on for decades. And we are seemingly in kind of a lost in space scenario. And a lot of twists and turns here. Some good, some bad. But I'd say if I had to teleport myself, as a kid when I was, 13 or 14, it seemed pretty obvious what was going to happen. And we're going to be on the moon and Mars, interstellar flight. We're going to be, out there doing things. And you kind of want to go back. Okay, I wasn't aware as a young person about what was going on around me with society. And that has caught up with me now. And I think that's where I would teleport myself. Why did I miss those cues?
If you were teleporting back in time, would you do something different? Would you choose a different career path? Would you have gone on to do something else in the space industry?
That's a great question. Probably not, because I saw so much ambition. I lived in San Diego, and that was a town that grew up in the space program early on. We had Convair Astronautics down the road from where I lived. They were building the Atlas rocket to boost the Mercury capsules up in orbit.
Mm-hmm.
And, I lived in an area that had engineers from Convair Astronautics around me. And they were telling me how it was all going to go
Mm-hmm.
and how exciting to work on the projects were. It's just an amazing period of time. And then, the main thing in San Diego, I could actually hear the rocket engines from Atlas boosters being tested at Sycamore Canyon. It was so loud
Mm-hmm.
because they were really gunning those engines up, and I could hear it as a kid. They were testing the 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 engines that were going to boost John Glenn into orbit,
Mm-hmm.
and it was exciting time, very exciting.
Well, no regrets then. Like, want to go back to that time, but would do things the same way. I guess the only thing that you're hoping would be different is where we are in our current space program.
Yeah, yeah, today I'm just hearing static engine firing from Congress.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Well, that's a good place for us to start. There's a lot I wanted to cover for our conversation today. So yeah, let's touch on current state. Things happening in NASA. I mean, obviously we've heard about the recent budget cuts. What's your take on current status for NASA, for Congress? Have you heard from anyone within NASA that's maybe been involved or seen some of the changes happening? And of course, how does this impact our future Mars plans?
yeah. One of the tragedies of this is how many people that are pretty much leadership people that I've certainly grown to uh, contact and quote
Mm-hmm.
that are departing NASA. They're going to buy out. They're going to go, and I don't know who's going to be left at NASA headquarters. As you know, they've had protests even outside NASA headquarters
Mm-hmm.
with people that are upset about the cutbacks. Now, one of the problems as you get older, you realize, you know, government agencies get bloated. They bloated with money. They become institutionalized to spend a lot of money, and it's important. And how do you gauge the NASA agenda with uh, America's agenda of where it's going?
Mm-hmm.
And God help us, I have no clue anymore about what America's agenda is really supposed to be. And leadership in space, is that really a priority in the American mind? Probably not. It's probably not. It's low.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but it's I have to be careful as a reporter. I don't get too carried away with myself. It's been tough. It's been tough because right now I think the space program is in jeopardy. But compared to what? Compared to other needs and issues of American government and what we're trying to fund. So we're kind of back, in a weird way, um, with the element that I want to talk more about is other countries moving forward at a time when America looks like maybe could be retreating from space leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's touch on that. Yeah, of course, lots of questions about China, the current space race between the U.S. and China. Since we last talked, if you could share some of the updates about what China has been doing about its lunar or Mars programs would be helpful. And then, of course, there are other spacefaring nations like Russia and India, and if you could share
Yeah,
about those programs as well.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty impressive on all fronts with China. I try to, one of the things about covering whatever China is trying to do, it's not like a NASA PA public affairs organization. You got to glue a lot of stuff together to figure out what
Yeah,
are they really saying here.
right.
You know, they have a space station up there. They got 3 people in there right now as we're talking. They're doing experiments. They're doing experiments on spacesuits that are lunar qualified. They're going to be lunar qualified spacesuits. They're doing experiments that have some indication that they're going to use that on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're moving ahead. But I will say, one of the things that, I got to watch myself because, China has the potential of failure. Right now they're in a really great upbeat mode about their space program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my guess, if you look at where the United States was, where the Soviet Union was, Russia, you get bold, and you all of a sudden you lose a crew.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens, and I don't know how China's going to react to that. I mean, they're going to get a little bit out there. It's sort of like launching shuttles all the time. All of a sudden, we convinced ourselves it was routine,
Mm-hmm.
and they will have an accident.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be very interesting to me to see how they react and how their citizens, the citizens act. And but on the other hand, they're doing a lot of work. Very impressive. They're on a goal-driven get on the moon before 2030. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
They're building their infrastructure to make that happen. They just tested a couple days ago their lunar lander for the crew, two person crew to land on the moon. And when you look at again, it's hard to look at the entire sweep of things they do, but when you aggregate it through press releases and everything, they got a step by step program, and they're moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
They you know, and to be blunt, and this is where American leadership comes in. I mean, I see this as a beep, 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 beep moment. It's a Sputnik moment for the U.S. to wake up and look at what China is doing
Mm-hmm.
in space, because they're going to be a leader. They're going to be a leader. And how does that migrate into U.S. policy?
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting that you mentioned, how will China potentially react if they have a catastrophic tragedy, like, we've seen with the first Apollo mission, with Challenger, with Columbia.
Right.
Will that, delay their progress, or hey, we've got a plan, we've got milestones, we're continuing forward.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, to your point, to see how they react. But I'd be curious as well, if there were some sort of tragedy, would that one either cause the U.S. to say, "Oh, hey, other nations are also, at risk. If they can have a tragedy, if they can have an accident, we're susceptible to that as well." Or on the other end of that spectrum, if there's something that happens with like U.S. space satellites, will the U.S. be in like retaliation mode? Like, oh, well, you damaged our satellites, so now we need to take preventative action. So could that potentially, one, hinder the US from making advancements, or the opposite, encourage the US? We need to be ready for whatever situation could happen.
Yeah, we seem to be in America. We seem to be reactive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting old here, but man, the space race .01. I lived through that damn thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty serious. I mean, we had a space race big time with the former Soviet Union. I mean, Sputnik went up. We were kind of getting ready for International Geophysical Year with a satellite, but that brought home the beep, beep, beep into American diplomacy because it made a big difference in spending money on science, education, um, diplomacy. It meant a lot for the Soviets to actually put that first satellite up. So I'm not sure I see too much difference when we go space race this time around.
Mm-hmm.
It's a space race, okay, whatever that means to people. But at the end of the day, you're left with a capability of a country to do great things in space. Is that the U.S.? Is it uh, China? And I keep an eye on Russia. I keep an eye on Russia because nobody's paying too much attention about some new things that are going on in Russia. They're lined up with China to go back to the moon, do some great capabilities at the moon. But yeah, I don't know what I'm getting to, but it's just we have to be aware that this is very different than the late 50s, 60s time frame. We have multiple countries angling to be leadership position in space, and it's up to America whether it wants to play a role of leadership, whatever that means to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or the other thing that I'm really big on, we better get going on cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
I am totally convinced that working with China is not uh, an amendment problem. I think we better get going on thinking about China as a leader in space exploration and what avenues can we both work on to both countries' advantage that makes the entire scene of space become cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And you can open it up and have all kinds of space lawyers come in and, oh my God, who owns the moon and what crater do we own and what's in there and can we mine that to the disadvantage of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a time to really have a great conversation. And with Trump with Putin coming up, what is it, Friday? Who knows how that's going to migrate into other avenues, and maybe space is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of getting to the moon, obviously, U.S. has U.S. has been to the moon. China now, Russia as well, India, and we've also seen the private companies, Intuitive and Firefly. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I was just seeing something the other day about potentially NASA and U.S. want to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. Can you speak to that? Maybe I need a fact check that I saw this correctly, but here, let's do some quick searching real quick so I make sure I'm not making stuff up.
That's right.
But yeah, let's touch on. I mean, obviously the space race. That's primarily U.S. and China, but we know Russia is still a player. So is India. There's other nations that are trying to get their foot in the door as well. How do we balance who we're competing with? Maybe it's hard to compete with 3 or 4 countries at one time. Are we focusing just on trying to get to the moon, or we're trying to get to the moon to get to that South Pole so that we can access that water? What's our incentive right now to get to the moon?
Well, you're right on the nuclear power plant on the moon. That got a lot of press, unbelievable amount. So much I didn't even write about it because there was too many good reporters jumped on that damn thing. Because we got an interim acting, whatever the hell he is, NASA administrator,
Right.
Brian Duffy. Is it Duffy? Yeah, yeah. And he's made a statement about it, and he's going to put a big nuclear reactor. Well, China's already been talking about it. Russia's been talking about reactors on the moon. Don't forget, we have RTGs, radioactive uh, generators that were used in the Apollo program, and if you're going to power up stuff, and now we're talking about powering up habitats, powering up processing units, powering up, really getting a leg up on the moon with power, and you need the power. And so then you get the UN coming in. Oh God, we're going to have nuclear power on the moon. Let them do their thing, and whatever's going to come out of it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, the power situation on the moon is critical. If 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 we are not going to just put a flag up and leave, kind of salute and leave, we're talking about permanence. We're talking about creating a Antarctica-like base on the moon. I see very little difference to me in how we have handled Antarctica and the polar regions on Earth for research stations. We're going to have some facility, and China's going to have one. U.S. will have, maybe Russia will have their own. And how do you integrate all that? How do you should it be integrated? Is there a 9/11 button to push on the phone if you're in trouble and you ran out of oxygen? Can we rely on each other? So there's a evolving a bunch of rhetoric right now about how safe we can have different stations on the moon. And I just read something. I'm guilty of not reading the whole thing, but it was from Russia, and it was why they want to go to the South Pole of the moon, and where they're going to go, and what they want to do, and it's they're lining it up. People got a lot of great ideas. We do too. China's definitely got what they call the International Lunar Research Station, ILRS, that they want to plant on the moon. It would be a human tended capability early on. Robotics is going to play a big part early on in the Chinese station. But robots will be there to welcome humans with open arms.
Yeah. What do you say to those people that hear nuclear reactor and they think Chernobyl, they think 3 Mile Island, and they're thinking like, oh, devastation. And maybe they don't know enough about what the potential benefits are. What would you say to those people?
Well, people are working on this nuclear reactors, compact nuclear reactors now. NASA's done a lot of work on it. Russia's done a lot of great work. China's got their own technology. So yeah, I don't see Chernobyl on the moon, but we don't know yet. What that system's going to look like, how robust it will be, how impervious it would be to radiation and any kind of incoming meteoritic strikes or something. So you're kind of there. But the bottom line is, if you're going to really stay there, if you're really going to build up a base, I mean, the power is crucial. I mean, I see more images of solar panels on all kinds of stuff. I mean, huge solar panels trying to collect energy. And after a while, it kind of looks silly. It looks silly to me. You got to have some kind of power level development that gets rid of all that surface area of solar panels that could break down or have some problem. So, not that it won't early on be important, but it all gets back to permanence, on the moon, and then it gets back to, in America, does anybody care? Do we really care? Okay, there was a moment in my time for reporting that there was a Senate meeting, and it talked about, they were so worried that the Soviet Union was going to put a rocket with a bunch of paint cans on it that were red, and they were going to actually hit the moon and make a red dot on the moon, and claim that the Soviet Union owns the moon. And one of the senators said, "Okay, well, we'll just launch another rocket with blue and white, and we'll hit it, and it'll be America on the moon." Yeah. That's a real story. Yeah, I mean, that's how pathetic it was early on, with diplomatic. What does the space program mean to that country, to other countries, and being in a leadership role?
Yeah, I'm thinking about moments where the U.S. has been thrust into a leadership position. They had no option but to take a stand and unite. You think of, again, tragic, dire situations. You think of 9/11. You think of Russia launching Sputnik, and your mind goes wild that they're going to be spying on us, and that's how they're going to start the next World War. So it's unfortunate that it potentially could take an event like that for the U.S. to step up. But there, is conversation about trying to be proactive. To your point, we're being very reactive at this time. But to the argument about a nuclear reactor, why people that say we don't want to do that, trying to explain to them about using the moon as a potential launch pad. It's going to be easier to launch from the moon to get to Mars than trying to fight Earth's gravity and atmosphere to get to Mars. So another potential benefit to having a permanent base on the moon, getting us one step closer to Mars. But I see that there's a question here which is relevant to what we're talking about right now about the moon. Pamela asks, who enforces space law on the moon or Mars?
Well, you got the UN Outer Space Treaty as the ground level treaty that everybody salutes. And again, everybody in the last few years has looked at that treaty, that a lot of signatories on there, a lot of countries, and mostly about the peaceful uses of outer space.
Right.
And a corny line that used to flood through the L5 Society when I was part of that, where you have the peaceful uses of outer space, and then you have the useful pieces of outer space. Who owns those? So, I think we're in a situation where we're evolving, and the capabilities of multiple countries are really redefining how we work together, how we cooperate, how we compete, for economic advantage, without some kind of blundering in some kind of, keep out zones and all these other things. It's fascinating to watch this evolve. Now, My problem with the space law people, I love them all, and I write about them all the time. But, at the end of the day, you're really left with actions. Actions speak louder than the legal beagle words. We'll see how things migrate to the moon, and we use the moon literally. And I'm very concerned about specific areas of the moon that may have more strategic value than other areas. Who gets there first?
Mm-hmm.
You put a fence around it. Don't enter here. We're busy.
Stay out.
you
Yeah,
know,
not trespassing.
helium-3 is a
Mm-hmm.
rare earth. There's other rare earth material. There's other water that could be buried in these craters that have never seen sun for billions of years. How much is in there? Is there a crater that has more than other? Who gets there first? So it's great. It's kind of a really fascinating saga evolving that very few people are aware of, but it's happening, and we have many nations now are launching spacecraft to get to the moon to try to understand better where those resources are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting pretty good at it. The resolution's going up, new camera systems, new capabilities by infrared sensors. We're charting the moon like we've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the U.S. but other countries.
Yeah.
So it's a land grab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just finishing my executive master's program through Thunderbird, and I had one of those space policy and law classes, and we talked about that. And one of the things that stood out to me was that even with the Outer Space Treaty, or even Artemis Accords, it's not
Yeah.
enforceable. So you mentioned the UN. Again, if somebody were to violate the Outer Space Treaty, the UN can say, "Hey, you're not supposed to do that," but what do they do about it? The UN doesn't have its own military. It's going to rely on those nation states to then take some sort of action or retaliation to a nation that may have violated it. So who enforces it? Well, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to say who enforces it because there's no police. There's no objective police body. It's everybody that's currently.
I think even if they're objective, it's a mess. I don't have too much hope for trying to sort that out through UN. You can see what they're doing with Gaza and Israel and all the other things they're really taken up with right now, and it's hard. You have no teeth. You got nothing. You got no. You got no. Capability to go in there and force anything, whatever that's supposed to be. And so, yeah, it's
As you
like,
want.
the fallback position. You hear it from people more and more. Wild West. It's a Wild West. Okay. Well, I don't know. I know for Russia, a Wild West. What does that mean to them? What China, the Wild West? Okay. But America, Wild West. Okay. We got a lot of room to grow here about how to, utilize the moon. And it's definitely, there's stuff there. I mean, I see it. I can look out my window right now and I see the moon. It's over there.
Mm-hmm.
The moon is right over there. And people forget how close that damn thing is. It's a giant orb body. Lots of stuff, lots of resources, lots of unknowns, because I think we're on the edge of finding some new things that the moon is going to offer that could be very, very valuable to what everybody's hyping, the cislunar economy. Oh my God, the cislunar economy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I'm lucky to have a bank account. Never mind the cislunar economy. you know, you know, it just Okay, we're going to make something on the moon, bring it back. We're going to use it on the moon to do the thing. And, so a lot of great papers. People are thinking about it. But getting to the moon and finding out what we really are dealing with. I just wrote a story yesterday. The School of Mines has a giant lunar simulation chamber they built. And they're running rovers in there trying to figure out how do you excavate? How do you get in and out of craters? How, the tilt level? I mean, it's really the workaday thing any construction site would go through, but it's on the moon. They have 110 metric tons of lunar simulant in that facility, and they're trying to get groups, and they are getting a lot of different companies and private sector and international groups coming in and using the thing. It's pretty exciting. People are trying to figure out what is the output of the moon? Can we use the resources there? How easy is it going to be? What are the problems? Get them up front, try to sort it out. But at the end of the day, again, it's always at the end of the day. I've used that 5 times probably. You got to get to the moon and try this stuff out because the problem is very sincere from me is you cannot replicate the 1/6 gravity, the vacuum, radiation, the day-night cycle, all that stuff coming at once on your vehicle. I mean, we can try to flesh out mechanisms on down here, but I've seen it happen on spacecraft that went to the moon. The Firefly Blue Ghost had issues that they, as much as they try to rattle every possible scenario out of that damn thing, they found new things when they got there. And that's what's going to happen. You got to get the hardware down there. And, that broke. That didn't go. Or that worked better than we thought. Can we build on that?
Yeah, how can we integrate?
It's exciting times for that capability on the moon. How do we use it? What and how best to use it? And what equipment's going to break down in the first hour or go on for what, decade?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I think a lot of people probably feel maybe a little bit more pessimistic. I mean, obviously with the cuts to NASA, U.S. seeming to be taking a little bit of a back step. Maybe since a little bit of the fallout with Trump and Elon as well. I mean, when Elon was beside him, it was, I think Trump said in his inauguration speech that, hey, we're going to Mars or something, whenever it was. And maybe we've backtracked that a little bit. So even though maybe it seems like, that's not as much as a priority right now, there's still things to be optimistic about and to be excited.
I think it's exciting that Blue Origin and SpaceX are still around doing great, innovative things. We have a lot of private groups that have been funded mostly by NASA and are doing their own thing. And it's a great time. Some of them are failing. Some of them are going to be good. Like everybody, we've had SpaceX. I love Elon. There are days,
right?
You're never sure where we're going.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, we've had back to back failure of Starship problems, and the next one, Euphoria #1, are we going to get there? And see, and then refueling in orbit and all the other things that are promissory notes on this project. You just can't discount the guy. I mean, he's putting the money in. It's amazing what's happening. I did this morning. I looked at the Starbase in Texas. People are working hard I mean, that damn thing is like when you're a kid. When I was a kid, looking at Kennedy Space Center being constructed for going to the moon, the JFK John Kennedy's dream of making it to the moon by the end of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
Structures were built, unbelievable. Things were rolling. God, a lot of uh, amazing factory building of stuff. And you look at Starbase, that it reminds me of that. It just we're back to an unbelievable infrastructure he's trying to develop for routine, uh, rapid launch and recovery of the booster and all the other things he's done. And who knows how this is going to play out? It could be a dud.
Mm-hmm.
It could all turn out to be a dud. But um, everybody wants to. I'm kind of in the Pied Piper column of people that want him to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, how could you not? I mean, for what he's done so far, and like the vision, the dream, willing to put all of his, time and effort and money into making it successful. How could you not want it to succeed? I don't want to be those people that wishes something to fail. Like, no, this benefits all of us if it succeeds. So yeah, let's be supportive. I'm wondering about some of the contracting bits. So I was up in DC a couple weeks ago. Had a chance to visit with some space companies. Got a chance to present to the State Department, Office of Space Affairs, actually, and just hearing from them, a little bit about the funding issues. Again, the narrative is, hey, NASA's getting all their budget cut. There's no money. Everybody's out of a job. But I've been hearing that the model is just shifting. That we're going to be giving contracts to those private companies. Obviously, their budget being cut, but it's not zero. So some of those funds are going to those private companies for those contracts. And I did hear that those people that have left NASA are taking roles with SpaceX, Blue Origin, Firefly, etc. So there's still something to be hopeful about. But any other thoughts on like the NASA funding issues as we're kind of getting to the end?
I think you're bringing up a couple of really good points that I haven't written about much, but I hear it from younger engineers, women, men, moving between private companies. And whether it's Blue Origin or Lunar Outpost, I mean, there's since we started talking, probably 5 other startups started up. People are excited about doing something in space, but they need the anchor of NASA money more than not to really fulfill what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
And now, okay, in saying that, what I've seen, I go to a lot of meetings, we're at the bar, and I got a guy coming up to me talking about, I just lost my job at the thing, and where should I go next? And, a lot of those people, they're bouncing around between the startups.
Yeah.
And Barbara, my wife, and I we're looking at a new career book, and we're looking at the future of career in space. Kind of, are you kidding? Do you really want to do this? Because it's a hard road.
Yeah.
And younger people with dreams and they want to get involved. A lot of them stick to the group, and God help them. If you're a manager of a space company, a private space company, and you're trying to think about, my employees, are they coming and going? How much allegiance do they have to what I'm trying to do here? And I think that there is a huge story going on, kind of sub-level about this. And it gets to your point about, how does NASA trust these private companies? how much are we, how much is the government going to invest in these groups? We talked a little bit about the lunar groups. I think, I'm kind of being mean here, but the commercial lunar program where NASA is buying services for intuitive machines and Firefly and a couple other major groups.
Right.
It's not been a great track record. It's not that Blue Ghost from Firefly got down there and did what it was supposed to do and did it well. Intuitive machines is still skipping across the lunar surface and being up, falling on its side, and as much as they try to do PR to make it sound like they did great, I'm sorry, it's not working. Perhaps the whole design of their lander is off, but Blue Ghost was successful. We got some other ones that are coming up, and we'll see how a couple of the other groups do. But right now, that NASA leaning on the private sector, kind of a bad. I don't see a good report card yet. Not that I don't want it, and NASA's out is that, oh we're going to spend money on risk, whatever, success has much more of a sting than failure. You gotta, and we're running out of time because a lot of these private lunar landers are designed to give data for the Artemis people that are going to be on the moon. I don't know what year we're going to go. I love my Artemis program. And I got people hating me because I love Artemis. But, right now it looks like the NASA budget, despite all the hoopla, is going to fund this, around the moon trek of the Artemis, people. And we're going to go to a lunar landing situation.
Yep.
How the hell are those people getting down on the moon? You got Starship out of control, in my view. We don't know how well he's running out of time on that. Blue Origin keeps bragging about they're going to have their lunar lander land robotically on the moon by the end of the year. Okay, fine. Let's go. Let's make it happen. That's Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and their, space buddies in dementia. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to make it. Yeah, it's great, but I want to have all these people succeed. I don't want to sound too. I'm just getting old enough where I want to see a lot of success. Because I'm going to drop over dead and I wouldn't have seen all this stuff. I've written so much about it. You want to really have felt you nurtured along the public about what's possible. That's
absolutely, and it's a dream that's in all of us. We want to see these things happen and feel like we've contributed in some way, even if it's writing, if it's hosting a podcast, if it's sharing what's happening with the public. We've all played some little part in the big machine, so we want to see that
big machine
be successful.
Well,
you've given me some things to think about as well, and I know we've got some good insights, so I appreciate you coming on the podcast as always and sharing your knowledge. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, like always.
Yeah, the problem is knowledge. I wish I knew what the end story was.
Right? That would make things ever easier.
Yeah,
right. Happen.
A lot of tentacles going out there of unknowns.
Yeah. Well, hey, the future, is upon us. There's still a lot to be excited about. And we'll keep watching and hoping for success of all these companies and programs. And organizations like NASA to.
I got fingers crossed, even though they may have arthritis in there. I don't know.
Hey, it's still crossed. It still counts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, Leonard, just want to say, thank you again for coming on the podcast, for answering some questions. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
All right. Thank you for having me. It was great. I really enjoyed your questions.
Thank you. Wanted to say thank you to our executive director, James Burke, our PR director, Michael Stoltz, Leah behind the scenes. Thank you as always for your help. And thank you for everybody that tuned in today. Pleasure to hear you all, to see your questions. I want to remind everybody that we're going to end today's episode the way that we always do. And that is, the best is yet to come. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.